This video is going to be a self-indulgent one. As the Studio Series line goes on, there are gaps in the lineup that could be filled in, especially when Studio Series introduced the gamer and concept sublines. With this video obviously going about the characters and designs who don't currently have modern Studio Series toys, or simply never did get a toy in the original toy lines connected to Studio Series, and obviously the overarching theme of these characters also obviously being characters that I want the most who don't have Studio Series toys. So with that, let's begin. Starting off, I'm going to kick off this video with two characters I often see in wish lists I see online, Visitor Fallen Breakaway and Dr. Moon Warpath. It's easy to understand why, if you're like me who grew up with the Bayverse and its tie-in games. I see to come from them, with Breakaway even being a major character in the PC and console version of the Revenge of the Fallen game, being part of the game's main roster of playable characters, and being a talking head in a few missions too, alongside being a part in some post-mission banter between the Autobots. Plus, his unique hunchback design, voice, and forearm-mounted sniper Gatling gun helps him stand out, giving him a unique silhouette that's also different from the Seekers. While Warpath doesn't have the same level of presence in the Dr. Moon game, fully only being in the game as a boss fight for Megatron, but from the design alone, I can see why people want him as a toy, as he is just a very solid design and a faithful update to the original G1 design, but making it fit into the Bayverse aesthetic. And personally, if the Bayverse was more like this, I think it would have more appeal to more Transformers fans. But getting back on track with would-be or possible Studio Series toys, when the Game Edition subline was announced, I'm surprised that we've been sticking to the Cybertron games and recently just dabbing into the imitation. Like, I love those games too, but my main nostalgia comes from the Bayverse Time games, which is where we fully get to the self-indulgence of this video, where we flip to Decepticons as a big enough designs most people don't even remember, I think. But to start off on surface level with the '07 game Shockwave. Yes, before he appeared in the Dark of the Moon film, he first appeared in the Bayverse in the '07 Time games, as in the main console PC version of the game. He was a boss for Optimus Prime to fight. He was even a triple chaser too, swapping between his artillery gun form, his attack helicopter form, and of course his rod form across the area. As a kid, I've always wanted a toy art design, though thinking about it, maybe for simplicity's sake, they should axe the triple chaser functionality, as I don't think there's enough of the helicopter form and the artillery gun form for this to work as a toy, other than maybe shoving everything to the bottom of the artillery gun form, but I don't think they'll be able to make a convincing enough bow from the helicopter blade as where else they would go in the artillery gun form, other than again just shoving them to the bottom and hoping for the best. Though, even as this is the more popular '07 Shockwave design, this isn't his own design from the '07 Bayverse universe, as there's another design for Shockwave in the often forgotten PSP game. And this thing we're going to be getting obscure in this one, as honestly who brings up the PSP game anymore? Well, me obviously, as outside of the home console version of the '07 Time game, the PSP version has been my second most played Transformers game until the Revenge of the Fallen Time games came around, as those became my most played Transformers games. Shockwave took on a different role in the PSP game, as unlike the home console version, where he was just a boss for the Autobots that didn't have any character, in the PSP game he had a completely different role, being a playable Decepticon in the campaign. And unlike most modern depictions of Shockwave, where he's a loyal Decepticon, in the PSP game he's far more like his G1 comic book self, where he's a backstabber trying to overthrow Megatron for being the leader of the Decepticons. And in the PSP game, he gets an opportunity, as in this version of the '07 film, when Megatron came to Earth, he brought along a bunch of drones. And since Megatron is currently still offline, Shockwave decides to hijack Megatron's drone army for himself to try and become the leader of the Decepticons. But Autobots catch wind of Shockwave's plan, and they are able to thwart Shockwave's goal and are able to sabotage the drones, leading to slightly changed events of the '07 film playing out, with Shockwave and Starscream retreating back to Cybertron, where they fight over to take control of the remaining Decepticons. And I think that's why I prefer PSP Shockwave over PS2 Shockwave. Well, yeah, PS2 Shockwave is a cool boss fight, but that's all he really is, a boss fight, compared to PSP Shockwave, where there's far more to his character, as yet for one he actually has a character compared to PS2 Shockwave. And it's also probably my bias for him being a tank, where that's far more cooler in my opinion than him being a triple changer. The PSP also had Sideswipe, Trailbreaker, Wheeljack, and Hound, remixing their original design and adapting them into the Bayverse style. Don't know how likely it is for them to get toys, especially since 3 of the 4 would appear in the movies in one way or another. But whenever I ask questions of if a character could get a toy, the answer is always everything is on the table. and these designs could be on there too, right? Sticking to the 07 games, we come to the main inspiration of this video, the drone units, as between the boss fights of the characters that are actually in the film, both Autobots and Decepticons use drones as the game's cannon fodder for you to destroy repeatedly. In order from smallest to tallest, we have Scrapper, Swindle, Dropkick, Longarm, Payload, Mechmaster, and finally, Dreadwing drones. While the Autobots fight drones with modified heads, the Decepticons fight ones with traditional heads, with 2 eyes and a faceplate, plus different color schemes for both sides. While most of these drones would come out in the Ultimate toy line, with one making its way into the Resident Evil toy line, but one drone never got a toy in any toy line from the Bayverse, and that one happened to be my favorite one too, the Mixmaster unit. I just love the mixing drums splitting in half to becoming massive shoulder armor and weapon mode, and its role as a mini boss for you to fight in the rare times it shows up has made this drone stick with me forever. Plus, I can see this drone possibly having 3 recolors at least, and retools, which are the Decepticon drone, the Autobot drone, and just Paper style G1 Mixmaster. There's also the possibility of the repaint this drone as with the 4 Mixmaster, because honestly, why not? But wrapping back around to this drone being absent from the Ultimate Online, Hasbro has said they tried to complete sets too for a while, and the Ultimate drones have been missing this spot for almost 20 years now, with Super Series Game Edison being the perfect chance to finally fill this missing bot in the set. So, at the very least, they don't have to make all new toys for the drones. At minimum, they could just release a toy of the Mechmaster unit to complete that set. Lastly, for the Titan drones, for completeness sake, the Visitor Fawn, Dr. Moon, and Riser to Darkspark also had cannon fodder for the player to fight too, but they're completely different from the 07 drones. These cannon fodder are now split into different classes, ranging from standard cannon fodder to snipers and heavy units. Although, unlike the 07 game, none of these drones act as mini-bosses. Until Rise of the Darkspark, where the Kabadakon Heavy was repurposed as the Mercenary Titan mini-boss. Also, unlike the 07 drones, these guys never got toys, but like their 07 counterparts, some of the cannon fodder will be playable, as a Seeker and a Protector bot are secret playable characters in the respective side campaigns. And in the DS fan games, to the Revisit Forward, we can even get to play as one of the cannon fodder with the Creator Bot. For those that don't know, the Creator Bot is a play as a character from the DS 07 and Revisit Forward time games. Personally, I refer to them both as a Creator Bot, but officially the Revisit Forward character is referred to as the Recruit. But they both share the exact same role, characterization, and even insert themselves into the story in the exact same way, crashing down to Earth in their portal form. But semantics aside, the Creator Bot could be a good source of toys, as they can take on different forms in their respective games. In the Ultimate game, the Creator Bot can freely scan multiple alt forms, taking their body to match being able to switch between a simple car to only up to a jet fighter. You can scan different vehicles to get more powerful forms. They're mostly just because of, say, the car you already have, but with 7 different color scheme and different details in weapon mode, like having sword weapons or not. And there's a special alt mode you can scan. In the Autobot version of the DS game, you can scan an FJ2 Raptor done up as Skydive, while in the Decepticon version, it's Baywa Starscream done up in its G1 colors. Well, Skydive would need a new head, but even the console version gave Starscream his G1 colors, same with Optimus and Jazz. And later, both Ironhide and Ratchet in the next game as well would get those as skins. So I can see these G1 recolors becoming reality, if only to get more use out of those modes again. But getting back on track with the Resident Evil player character, unlike his 07 counterpart, the Recruit can only pick a single form per save file, and he only has access to 3 options, heavy, medium, and light, which take on the size of the cannon fodder related to size class and faction, depending on if you're playing the Autobot or Decepticon version of the game. Don't know how likely they'll ever do this, but it'll get me to get one of them at least due to the nostalgia of those games. Lastly for this video, let's move on from the Bayverse to the Cybertron games. Well, we're only getting toys for the War of Cybertron designs, and I wonder if we're also going to get 2 versions of Brawl. Like, we could get another combining War of Cybertron Brawl, and then get a 4 Cybertron Brawl that's able to combine. Brawl aside, I always wanted a toy of Air Raid from those games, as I love his blocky design from them, and he never got a proper toy, just a retool of Shockwave that looked more like one of Blaster's minions than Air Raid himself. Sticking with War of Cybertron, and with 8 and Grimlock getting a revamped toy in the form of a Titan Class one, opening the door for Studio Series to get Titan Class toys. This opens the door for 2 of my top 5 designs from War of Cybertron to get toys in Game Edition, Mega Supreme and Tripticon, both being boss fights in the respective Autobot and Decepticon campaigns, with the Mega Supreme being the first one to enter the story, so let's start with him. Unlike most other Mega Supremes, the War for Cybertron version of him doesn't do any sort of pause forming for his transformation, with only animated Omega Supreme being the only other version of the character to do so from memory. But for War for Cybertron Omega Supreme, it gives him a similar yet different silhouette, as despite clearly being based off his V1 self, his proportions are more squat, with shorter legs and with Popeye arms. This version of Omega could also come with a bunch of accessories too, with the turrets that cover his body in his boss fight, the missiles, laser, and gravity attacks from his arms, and his ship form can even form a blast shield. I don't think he can come with all of these, but at least something for his right arm, as the laser attack is tied to the iconic or Cybertron trailer and something he does in game. Coming over to the Decepticons with Tripticon, and War Cybertron gave this Mecha Lizard the best glow up out of everyone here, in my opinion, as this is easily my favourite version of the character, no longer having T-Rex proportions, that was sporting proper arms and a more traditional human body. He also foreshadows the Monsterverse Mechagodzilla, but while Decepticon is bulky, Monsterverse Mechagodzilla is lanky. Silver Kingdom monsters aside, what would this Decepticon old mode be? Personally, I think making him a Turbo Changer could work, making him the ultimate Cybertron Decepticon by giving him both his War Cybertron and for Cybertron old modes. Having one form being Decepticon Station, the other obviously being the Nemesis, with the latter and robot mode taking priority as we get clear views of them, or we don't get a clear view of his space station form. So they could make it look like whatever, disturbed making Decepticon other two forms look good. Though granted, I think the reality would be they would just focus on giving Decepticon a good robot mode and a good Nemesis mode, and just acting the space station form, though maybe they could have a mid-transformation space station form and call it a day. Lastly, I'm going to go through Silver Chosen again and put the Ultra Titan and the Second Leaper on the rest list. The second I saw the Ultra Titan when the Force Cybertron game came out is when I wanted a toy of this cool robot, just a giant boxy robot with an equally massive twin minigun arm, with a simple yet powerful design. There's even a recolor in the Rise of the Darkspark game, as that introduced a Decepticon variant of this Titan, alongside the previously mentioned Mercenary Titan. The Ultra Titan also has the benefit of not transforming in-game, so they can make up his old mode to look like whatever to make the old mode look spot on to the game. Which is also largely the same story for the Decepticon Leapers. There's a cool robot that I always wanted a toy as a kid. And as a kid, I didn't think there was a vessel designed for the old form, so I've always imagined them transforming into a rocket-powered battering ram. But turns out they do if you look at the concept art, where they turn into a more standard design of looking like a modified flyer board, but with the levers massive spikes on either side of the jet form. The Leapers also returned in Rise of the Darkspark as mercenary Leapers, and personally these are my preferred design out of the two, as the extra details help design come together more in my opinion, and giving the Leapers those massive mantis-like blades also makes design look cooler in my opinion too. With that, we're at the end of this video. What do you think? What designs and characters that haven't appeared yet in this studio series would you like to see in this line? But in any event, thank you for watching.